Welcome back to Commercial Breaks with Miss Education. I'm Miss Education. Hi. All right, I had to change because I'm hot, super hot. I think it's out of frustration because I'm redoing this entire episode, entire 3 episodes, right? So yeah, I'm a little hot, metaphorically and literally. Um, but we're gonna make it. This episode 54, Friends Outside Your Storm. I've used this analogy for years where I tell individuals like when it's and I've used it on myself, right? It is comforting to me that when we find it, life is full of ups and downs, storms and rainbows, right? And when we find ourselves in storms, it is prudent that a few things. That one, remember that after every storm, first of all, storms don't last forever, right? They do not last forever. And then after every storm, there is a rainbow. Whether it's super visible behind the clouds, there's a rainbow somewhere after the storm. And that is a promise. It's God's promise. So I hold on to that. After every storm, there is a rainbow. Additionally, I know that when I am in a storm, I may not be able to see clearly. I may not know what's ahead of me. I am afraid. But there are those who have been through the storm and who've made it out and who are living in the rainbow. And not only are they living in the rainbow, but they're willing to look back and help those in the storm. I hold on to those. I think I've shared last year around this time, maybe. I was definitely in a storm of depression. And it's not sadness, because I realize, and I'm actually admitting this for the first time-ish, we're human, so we experience sadness, and sadness is not depression. I flirted with depression, and where it was holding me down, right? And it was affecting my life, but I had to cover it up and mask it up. But what kept me was knowing that this was a storm and that God's words do not go void, that this was only a moment, that I was going to be delivered from this. I held on to that. I didn't know the date. I didn't know the moment it would happen, but I knew for certainty that I would be delivered from this storm. So I pressed on, right? I did my best not to do anything irrational, because when you find yourself in a storm, you don't think straight. And that sometimes could be because while in a storm, you think you can't see the end and you don't know how it ends, so you act irrationally. I encourage you and I challenge you, next time you find yourself in a storm, know that there is an end date, that God will deliver you. So be wise while in the storm, okay? Take time to learn while in the storm. Take time to learn while in the storm, because it will end. By the grace of God, it will end. And so growing up, my father and my mother, but a lot more so my dad, because my dad, if you know him, he talks a lot. And he always gave, I think that's where I get these commercial breaks from. My dad, he always gave these parables, these short stories. My dad's name is Disciple, okay? And he thought he was one of God's disciples. And growing up, he would always, honestly, I'd rather get a tau, which is a spanking, than having to hear my father give me his version of a commercial break. But I am grateful now that he did, because I use his words of wisdom. And in my storms, these commercial breaks that my father gave me were tools that I used to get out of my storm, right? So, friends outside of your storm, I think that it is super, it's important that we all have these friends outside of storms. During my storm, I did not trust people for a few reasons. I was like, you don't know what I'm going through. You can't understand, and you'll judge me, right? Because again, I'm a teacher, an assistant principal. I'm a daughter, a mother, a wife, someone in the church. And here I am about to throw up all my sins. And it's hard, because now I fear that you'll look at me and you'll be like, oh, Ooh, you? So I found myself a therapist, right? Someone that I could throw up on, but it was a judge-free zone. And it worked. And then I realized that maybe I needed something else. My therapist is amazing, amazing man. I would recommend him. But then I realized maybe I need something else. Maybe I need to trust friends outside of my storm. What does that look like? What does that mean? As a mom, I can appreciate my parents more, right? And I wish that I had the wisdom that I have now, that when I was going through things, I wish that I had the confidence to go speak to my parents, because I know that I am only a fraction of the parent my parents were, right? I'm not even that great compared to them. But I know that if my sons were to come to me, doesn't matter what they say to me, I will listen, and I will give sound advice, and I will advice that is for their spiritual and physical edification and emotional edification, right? I want them to do well. And even if that means that, not even, but also including consequences, right? I will hand out consequences, because that's what love is. That's what love does. Love is fair. And I wish that when I was a child and a teenager and a young adult, had that confidence to speak to my parents and use them as my friends outside of my storm. Because too often when we find ourselves in storms, we talk to similarly situated people. And yes, there might be a benefit in that, where, you just went through something, I'm about to go through something, you can help me out of it. Yeah, there could be benefits in that. But there is wisdom that comes from people who are outside of a situation, who get to look in, who get to see the entire picture. Because when in a storm, it's a tunnel focus, right? You can only see, there's my finger, tunnel vision. Those of us who are outside of storm, we get to see the entire picture. We get to see things that you can't see, give you heads up warnings, here's some pitfalls, and I think that's important. And I think that, and what I realized, which is sad, is that there are too many people in our society who do not have friends outside of a storm, who do not have friends who can give them sound advice. Rather, many people, I'm not putting myself in there because I'm not a we in this one, but many people surround themselves with other people in storms, similar storms. We all go through storms, right? But we're not always in a storm. Okay. There's too many people who choose to, or who find themselves partnered up, right? Friends with other individuals who are also in similar storms, or just in storms in general. So everyone's in a storm. And if everyone is in a storm, how does anyone see a rainbow? Right? And there are times in my life when I'm not in a storm. Like right now, I'm not in a storm. There might be there might be some drizzling, but I'm not in a storm. So I am able to see, a larger picture. I'm able to see more. When I am in a storm, you may not want to come and talk to me. You may not want to come and talk to me. But that's something that I know about myself, and I admit. So I guess with this, what was the thought of this? Why this? I have friends who find themselves in situations and maybe not even major. I can't even say that, right? I was gonna say maybe not major storm, but to each his own. My major may be your minor, my major, right? You know what I mean? So they find themselves in a storm, and they speak to friends, and the friends give them advice. And then they come and tell me what their friends say. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, who gave you that advice? It's like, I'm trying to lose weight, and my friend told me that I should eat 5 cheeseburgers or Big Macs a day. What? Like, who told you that? You know what I mean? That's the kind of advice that storm partners give. I guess I want people to be aware, be mindful, look around, look at your community, and ask yourself, how many of my friends are living outside of a storm? Who do I talk to? Are they in a storm? Because storm-minded people give stormy advice, right? The question is who? I don't know. You know what? Truth is, in my head, this all makes sense. And I think, again, just because I'm redoing this episode, I'm a little bothered. So I don't know if this even made sense when it came out my mouth. I don't know. But I'm going to go. I think I'm going to end it. Oh, God. Okay. Anyway, what's the takeaway? The takeaway is find people in your circle who are uplifting, who are spiritually grounded, who have a connection to the Heavenly Father, who are not cheerleaders. Rather, they're coaches. They will tell you the truth in love, not to hurt you, but to empower and to help you. Find friends who, while you're in your storm, they can slowly pull you out in love and in truth. Because sometimes by affirming foolishness, we are actually prolonging the storm of our loved ones, right? With that being said, till next time, and next time will be in a few minutes because I have to do episode 55. Till next time, commercial breaks with Miss Education.